Hey, it's Mel. I am so excited to share this conversation with you. I'm about to introduce you with my friend, Dr. Daniel Amen. Can I get an amen? That's how much wisdom we're about to drop in this long and wide-ranging interview. So Dr. Daniel Amen has super famous clients. It's very public. He treats Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber. He was in a documentary with him. He's been involved in all of the brain studies related to concussions. The man has literally helped millions of people change their brains and subsequently change their lives. He has 9 clinics in the United States. He has scanned more than 200,000 brains, including mine and Chris's. He is a 12-time New York Times bestselling author. The dude knows his stuff. And I wanted to talk to him about a number of topics. Number one, he has just spent a year researching happiness. And he says there are 7 simple things that you can do in order to be happier, 30% happier in 30 days. You're going to learn that. You're also going to learn the 7 questions you can ask yourself in order to be happier, in order to make better decisions, which lead to a happier life. We are going to take a lot of questions about anxiety and the connection between anxiety and your brain type. We are going to talk about various supplements that you can take in order to combat anxiety, in order to have greater energy, in order to improve your overall health. I cannot wait for you to listen. So here we go with Dr. Daniel Amen. Please enjoy. First of all, how are you? How is the book launch going?
It's going great. We have about 15,000 pre-orders, so that was good for us. And I love this book. So, books are like children, and you have to nurture them. So that's all been good.
Awesome. Well, it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful title. And I know that everybody is going to benefit greatly from it. And so, I think it's pretty incredible that you think that you can get 30% happier in just 30 days. How can you? I mean, I realize that you've done 200,000 brain scans, but how do you even measure how somebody gets 30% happier?
So we did a challenge last year called the 30-Day Happiness Challenge. We had them start with the Oxford Happiness Questionnaire. And then we measured them as they went along. And the people who stayed, the people who finished, were 30% happier. Their energy was up 30%, and their memory was up. And, it's what I see. We did a challenge with the Brain Warriors Way. That was 6 months. But when people put these strategies in their life, they can get better quickly. And it's stuff that nobody taught you when you were going through school, right? You remember Paul Simon's song, Kodachrome. When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all.
Yeah, it's true.
And given the serious nature of mental health in the United States, we need to start teaching people these concepts.
Okay, so let's start talking about the concepts. So you say that there are 7 secrets that are going to make you happier. What are they?
Well, secret number 1, and I call them secrets because in all the happiness books, people aren't talking about this. I mean, there's a lot of happiness books. Yet America is the unhappiest it's been since the Great Depression. And so first
Let's just start to talk about that. I actually relate to that. I don't know how many times, I don't know if it's coming out of the pandemic, working hybrid. I turned to my husband the other day, Dr. Amen, and said, when did we stop having fun? Why is life so serious? Everything feels like it's heavy. Is this a common feeling right now, especially in the United States?
Oh, it's so awful. I mean, the incidence of depression tripled between February of 2020 and August of 2020. It is now doubled in children. Suicide is at a level we have never seen. And, there are lots of factors for that. The news is one of them. If you watch the news in the morning, you're 27% less happy in the afternoon. So it's people are drinking from a fire hose of trauma, and we need to turn off the fire hose. I mean, 5-10 minutes a day max, And otherwise, there are forces that are dividing us. I've never seen this before. Free speech is being suppressed. There's so many things that are making people unhappy, but you can still be happier.
Okay, well, this is what I love about your book, that despite the reality and what research and what modern life feels like, there are simple things that you can do to be happier. So what is the surprising thing that's number one in terms of the 7 secrets?
So you need to know your brain type, that happiness is not the same for everyone, that what makes some people happy, a warm bath, lavender, making love, connection, just bores another person to tears. What makes one type, our spontaneous type, happy, jumping out of an airplane, helicopter skiing, will make type 5, our cautious type, completely miserable. And so the first secret that nobody talks about is, well, what's your brain type? And in the book, I talk about 5 primary types: balanced, spontaneous, sort of my ADD group; persistent, my little OCD group; sensitive, the sad group; and cautious, the anxious group. So you need to sort of know what your brain is doing, and in that way, pick strategies to make you happy based on you, rather than based on, oh, these people, my priest growing up said these will be the things that make you happy.
Okay, so first of all, mind blown, because you're right, myself included. I share research, I share strategies that I use that make me happy, but they don't necessarily make Chris happy. And so if I'm hearing and tracking correctly, you're saying that just like there is a love language that people need to actually have spoken to them or that they speak in, your brain is wired a certain way to be happy, depending upon one of 5 primary brain types. I have a follow-up question, of course, because the second that you said, and I love how nurturing you are to all of us when you categorized the spontaneous brain as my ADHD folks. So I'm like, hi, Dr. Amen. But then you said cautious. And I'm like, okay, well, that's me too, because of the anxiety. What if you feel like you're a mix after you read You Happier and figure out your primary brain type?
Well, there's actually 16 types, because having combinations of types is, like Tana, my wife, is spontaneous and cautious. And, she needs novelty and new things, but we're not jumping out of an airplane together.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
And then so when you know yourself, you can choose the path to happiness that really fits you. Now, it's only one of the 7 secrets. The second one is you got to get your brain healthy, because if your brain's not healthy, you won't be happy. If you live like in a mold-filled home, or you have long COVID, or you have a terrible diet, or you're not exercising, or any of the risks to hurt your brain, that you're not going to be happy. I did a study for this book on 500 consecutive new patients, Damon clinics. We gave them the Oxford Happiness Questionnaire, and then we scanned them. And people who had sleepy frontal lobes, the front part of their brain was less active than was really healthy for them, much more likely to be unhappy. And so getting your brain healthy is critical. And you don't see that in any of the happiness books.
It's true. It's true. So for somebody that's listening to this right now and watching us talk about this and going, okay, that's great, but I am not near a Amen clinic to get my brain scanned. Are there 2 or 3 things that you would recommend are baseline starter habits that are critical for brain health, regardless of what your brain looks like right now?
Well, it's really 3 things. It's brain envy. You got to care about it. Freud was wrong. Penis envy is not the cause of anybody's problem. Avoid things that hurt it. You just need to know the list, like not sleeping or eating bad food or believing every stupid thing you think. We'll talk about that. So brain envy, avoid things that hurt it, do things that help it, like simple things, multiple vitamins, fish oil, or algae oil if you're vegan, every day. Optimize your vitamin D level. Get your hormones tested, because when your hormones aren't right, your brain's not right. And basically, it's just one question. Is this good for my brain or bad for it? And quite frankly, most second graders they get a 90 on this is good for you or bad for you.
If you're stopping to think about it, it's probably bad for you, right? All right. So you got to know your brain type. That's number one. You got to prioritize keeping your brain healthy and making choices that, from a common sense standpoint, also are kind to your brain. What is the secret number 3 to you happier?
Supplement your brain. That there are certain supplements, especially saffron, that are associated with happiness. In fact, there's folklore in Persia that if you're too happy, you must have had saffron. And I make something called Happy Saffron, zinc, and curcumin. And there's 24 randomized controlled trials showing it's equally effective to antidepressants. 24.
What?
And
okay, hold on.
than,
Stop. So there are 24 peer-reviewed studies that say that saffron is equally as effective for depression as prescription antidepressants?
Yes.
Chris, did you hear that? My husband, Chris, as you know, because you've scanned his brain and we still have to get together with you. That's incredible. All right. You're just like dropping knowledge and facts here, Dr. Amen. All right. So you gotta also nurture, feed, and take care of your brain from a supplement standpoint. You've already mentioned fish oil, vitamin D, multivitamin, saffron. Got it. And by the way, not only is this information in your book, You Happier, but if you go to any of the information on your websites, it is just unbelievable amounts of free information, everybody out there to help you as well. So what is secret number 4, Dr. Amen?
Love food that loves you back.
How do you know
you're
if loves you back?
in a relationship with food? That too many people go, oh, but I'd rather get Alzheimer's disease than give up sugar. Or they love pizza. But those things abuse you ultimately because they increase inflammation and damage you. I really want people thinking about what they put in their body. Your brain is 2% of your body's weight, but uses 20 to 30% of the calories you consume. And so if you're eating junk food, you're going to feel like junk. You're going to think like junk. So watching and monitoring what you put in your mouth and the mouths of your children are absolutely critical. If I had, just one simple strategy to end mental illness, it would be to radically change the American diet. Because if I can get my patients to eat in a brain healthy way, 30% of their symptoms go away.
That's incredible. Now, what about for those of us that eat really well? We're still unhappy, Dr. Amen. What's number 5?
Well, so it's only one of 7. 5 is master your mind and gain psychological distance from the noise in your head. And, I teach people kill the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. You don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. And what's new for this book is give your mind a name. So there's this principle of gaining psychological distance. I adopted my 2 nieces because their parents couldn't stop being bad parents. And, my niece, who's 17, named her mother's name, because it was like sort of every bad thing she got from her mother. And she's like, I totally can tell her to shut up. I totally could walk away and don't have to listen to that. But we're in a society of undisciplined thinkers. And if you just watch the news, people, yelling at each other, we need to do a better job of managing our mind, disciplining our mind to help us, sort of like a good coach. Yep. What a good coach notices what you do right and applauds you, encourages you, And they notice what you do wrong and they teach you. And that's what a good coach is. And so becoming a good parent or good coach to yourself is just critical.
So can I stop here for a minute? Because we get a ton of questions from our audience about this. And is there a simple way to explain to everybody, whether it's an example in child brain development, why is it that the human brain adopts the voice of the adults around you? Because I think there is this big epiphany for a lot of people when they either start reading your work, Dr. Amen, and they're using the ANTS tool in order to smash the negative thinking and have some objectivity, or you start to label your mind. Our son, for example, calls his brain Oliver whenever anxious thoughts come up to create objectivity and distance from thoughts. But can you explain to people the fact that the thinking patterns that you are listening to are likely not even from you? They're from somebody in childhood. How does that happen?
Well, thoughts come from all sorts of places.
Okay.
And one of the things I talk about in the book, is actually written into your genetic code.
Oh.
That we know what happened to your parents, to your grandparents, to your great-grandparents, changes your genes to make you more vulnerable. I did a podcast with Mark Wallen. I just love his book, It Didn't Start With You. And that children of the Holocaust, for example, or children who had parents who developed PTSD in Iraq or Afghanistan are 30% more likely to develop PTSD themselves. So negativity and also positivity can be written in our genetic code. So thoughts come from our ancestors. They obviously come from our parents, from our siblings, from our friends, from the music we listen to, from the news we hear. And just because you have a thought, and this is like the big idea nobody taught us in school. I was 28 before I learned this. Just because you have a thought has nothing to do with whether or not it's true, whether or not it's helpful, or whether or not you should attach to it. Because it's not the thoughts you have that make you suffer. It's the thoughts you attach to that make you suffer. And finding a way to evaluate them, because, I teach this stuff and I still get these crazy thoughts that come in my head. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Please don't say that out loud.
I can give you an example. Let me give you an example so that everybody can track with us. So we are in the middle of building this dream house in Vermont. And the closer that we get to moving in, the crazier my thoughts get, the more negative they get. And the thought that I have is, oh my gosh, if we move out of the house that we raised our kids in, and we move and spend more time 3 hours away in Vermont, we'll never see our kids again. I'll be alone. And so that's the thought. It pops up every time I wake up in Vermont and I, can see 100 miles. And then I immediately like, oh my God, I'm going to be alone on this mountain. And that's not the piece, you're right, that makes me suffer. It's the fact that somewhere I then go, holy shit, we shouldn't have done this. We moved here too soon. I'm right. I never see my parents. I moved out of that house. And that's where the suffering comes. It's the reaction to it. Is that what you're saying?
It's the undisciplined thinking. And if you have ADD, you use negative thinking as a stimulant.
Wait, what?
If you have ADD, if you have sleepy frontal lobes,
yeah.
And, you and I did scan my brain together. And so I got to look at your brain. But I learned this a long time ago. People who wake up and do that, they just gave themselves 5 milligrams of Ritalin. Negativity stimulates their brain. They don't know they do it. It's completely unconscious or Pavlovian, right? Remember Pavlov, and he'd ring a bell and feed the dogs. And whenever he'd ring a bell, the dogs would salivate. Well, they had no idea that they were doing that. But my ADD.
My gosh. Yeah, you just blew my mind. it never even, like, I've always thought about the negative thinking as just like a default, a habit. It runs on autopilot. I never thought about the fact that there's a benefit that I'm getting, which is
Right.
this jolt, because it does catch my attention. It does wake me up. I'm turning this into my own personal therapy session. This is amazing. The world's leading expert on the brain. All right. So let's move on to number 6, everybody.
Notice what you like about other people more than what you don't. If you're going to be happy, you need to give happiness away. And ultimately, we shape the behavior of other people by what we pay attention to. And so, for example, a couple who has 5 times more positive comments than negative ones, significantly more likely to stay married. A business team with 5 times more positive comments than negative ones is significantly more likely to make money. I collect penguins. Actually, I have 2 of them behind me. And because how do you shape a penguin's behavior? I went to Sea Life Park in Hawaii. They had this great penguin show. This penguin's name was Fat Freddy, and he could do amazing things. And I went up to the trainer afterwards, and I'm like, how'd you get this bird? Because I was having trouble with my 7-year-old son at the time. How'd you get this bird to do all these really cool things? And she said, unlike parents, whenever Freddie does anything like what I want him to do, I notice him. I give him a hug, and I give him a fish. And the light just went on in my head that I was sort of like my dad, that when my son did the right things, in my mind, I didn't pay any attention to him because I just thought he should. And when he didn't do the right things, I gave him a lot of attention. So I was shaping him actually to be troubled when, and this works so well with Tana, with my wife, that I'm very purposeful in how I respond to her, because I love her and I want this to like last forever. And so I really focus on what I like rather than what I don't like. Now, if there are things I don't like, I'll talk about them, but that's not where the energy goes.
Wow. Okay. I'm like sitting, my mind is now spinning, not with negative thoughts, with really positive and kind of not even optimistic. Like I feel just listening to a lot of this, because it is very simple to put your attention on the things going right and what you like about people. And it is simple to try to figure out what kind of brain you have and understand that that's going to shape what's going to make you happy. What is secret number 7?
Live each day based on clearly defined values, purpose, and goals, and 4 big circles. And what I find, I've been a psychiatrist 40 years. And when I ask people what their goals are, they don't know. Like all great businesses have business plans. Like, what are we going to do this quarter? What are we going to do this year? What are we going to do the next 3 to 5 years? But most of my patients don't. And so we actually spend time, let's talk about values. And what values do you want to live your life on? What's your purpose in life? Why are you here? Why do you wake up? Is this random chance, or are we going to do more than that? And then clearly define, what do I want in my relationships, my work, my money, my physical, emotional, spiritual health. And that just goes to the question. I know we're going to talk about questions, but does it fit? But if you don't tell your brain what you want, and not just work and not just money, what do you want in your relationships? What do you want for your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, which most psychiatrists won't touch, but I sort of want to know why you think you're on the planet and what is your deepest sense of meaning and purpose, because purposeful people are happier. And so when you take all of this together, from brain type to brain health to supplements to food to managing your mind and relationships, you get 30% happier.
Well, there's no doubt. What you also showed me was about 70% of things that I could be doing So I want to stop for a second and talk a little bit about values and purpose, because you and I both have a large number of people that come to us for advice. And my experience with the millions of people that follow us is the same that you're experiencing in your clinical practice and in your social media following, which is the majority of people do not know what their values are, do not know what their goals are not sure what their purpose is. And so let's start with values first. Is there a tool or a simple resource or something that you would point people to help them sort out what they value?
Yes. In fact, in the book, there's a tool to do just that. And we look at it in 4 circles. So what are your biological values? What do you value about your body? What are your psychological values? What do you value about your mind? What are your social values and your spiritual values? And there's, I think, 36 different values. And so I want you to think about the people in your life you admire the most, and then see which of those values fit that you can adopt. One of my favorite is, it's public knowledge that I've been Miley Cyrus's doctor for a long time. And she has struggled with anxiety. She actually talks about it, but her value is showing up. Her value is following through. So even if she gets anxious and feels like not going on, she always goes on. And some people may have seen how hard this last week was for her. Her plane got hit by lightning. And then one of her friends, the drummer for Foo Fighters, died from a drug overdose. And it was disaster for her. But yet she showed up because that's one of her values.
Yeah. Awesome. Because I think that kind of trying to figure that out for yourself, it's not something that goes like that. You got to do a little digging. And so I'm thrilled that You Happier has some resources for people to help you start to really think about it, because it's important. And what about purpose? How do you help people start to think about what their purpose is?
So I have a wonderful exercise in the book, and it's based on like 5 simple questions, like who are you? What's your name? So Daniel, what do you love to do? I love looking at brains. I love changing people's lives. I love that. Who do you do it for? I do it for myself, right? I want to have a better brain. And I do it for my family, and I do it for our patients and our community. And what do these people want or need from you? And well, they want to suffer less. And ultimately, my purpose is to help people suffer less. And in the process, it helps me feel connected, feel validated, and I do the right thing, because if you're not authentic, you suck as a messenger. So
I love that.
I have people go through this.
Those are super simple. Who are you? So what's your name? What do you love to do? Who do you do it for? Why do these folks come to you? And what was the final question?
What do those people want or need from you? So that's 4.
What are those?
And 5 is, how do they change as a result of what you do? Like Laura Cleary and I, she's a comedian. We did this on Facebook. And ultimately, her purpose in life was to give people a little dose of happiness every day. And it's like so simple, but really you feel so purposeful. And
even if you're
people
not
are happier.
happy, and even if you're not happy in your life, you still know what you love to do. You can look back to times in your life where maybe you felt happier or more fulfilled or more connected or more energized, and you can remember the things that you love to do, correct? And is that how somebody who's not happy right now is reminded that the answers are there?
Well, and often they're focused on themselves rather than focused outward on how they can be helpful. Because when we get too wrapped up in ourselves, we become more vulnerable to depression.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I want to talk about the fact that in your new book, you've got 7 questions that you recommend that people ask themselves. Let's go through those 7 questions. And when you ask these questions, what do these questions do for you?
Well, I've been working on helping people change for a long time, and I realize the more effective I am, the simpler I get. If I can make it really simple. And I worked with BJ Fogg. Do you know BJ?
Hold on 1 second. I need to hug my son because I'm leaving today for 2 weeks and I'm not going to see him.
That'll make you happy.
So happy. Oh my God, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Have an awesome scrimmage. Say hi to Dr. Amen and everybody on the internet.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
I'll talk to you later.
I
Dave.
will call me.
Okay. Bye, dude.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So the 7 questions you were talking about BJ Fogg. And
You know BJ Fogg?
I don't know BJ Fogg personally, but I'm aware of the work and the research. Yes.
Oh, you would love him because so much of what you teach is a tiny habit.
Mhm.
It's super simple, and that's why it's so effective. And so I worked with him for 6 months to create tiny habits for brain health. And ultimately, it's these 7 questions. Number 1, am I doing something today that makes me uniquely happy based on my brain type? 2, is this good for my brain or bad for it? That's the mother tiny habit. You want to be happy, you got to get a healthier brain.
So you asked the second one kind of throughout the day. Is this good for my brain? Turning on this, flipping through social media for the next 45 minutes. Is this actually good for my brain? Obviously not. Put the phone down. Okay.
Right. Or what you're going to go drink, or what you're going to eat, or what you're going to smoke, or, the interaction you're going to have with your spouse. Is this good for my brain or bad for it? You just have to know the list. 3, am I supplementing my unique brain every day? Because based on your brain type, there are different supplements for the persistent person versus the cautious person. 4, do I choose food I love that loves me back? 5, is it true? Right? Whatever thought pops up in your head, is it true? So really become good at just questioning the nonsense, the noise that goes through your head. And one of my favorite questions, this is a sub question of 5. What went well today? I put myself to bed every night with, I say a prayer, and then I go, what went well today? And I start at the beginning of the day, and I go, usually I'm asleep by lunchtime, but I love that exercise because it's like a treasure hunt every day. That, because you and I are both busy, and so great things happen and we often gloss over them, where I'm like, oh my God, that was so cool. Like, my daughter is going to move closer to me, which makes me happy.
Now I'm triggered because I'm in Vermont here, sitting here thinking I'm never going to see my family again. So
which is a lie. Which is a lie. So you and I can talk about that. You'll see them anytime you want to see them, right? And children tend to follow, in my experience. But she actually found the bear I bought her the day she was born. Oh. And the music box still worked. And she sent me the picture and it made me teary. But then, I'm busy. I didn't think about it again. But boy, did I think about it putting myself to sleep, because it sets up your dreams to be more positive.
Wow.
And then 6 is, am I reinforcing behaviors I like in others today, or behaviors I dislike by what I pay attention to? And 7 is, does it fit? Does my behavior fit the values, purpose, and goals I have for my life? Because you have to tell your brain what you want, or it'll give you what society wants, which is consuming junk food and watching, trash on social media.
Well, what I love about all these questions is that kind of the first one that was, am I doing something for myself that makes me uniquely happy? And the one about what went well today are things that begin and end your day. And the rest of them help you re-anchor to the power inside you to align what you're doing throughout the day so that you are happier, more supported, and more aligned with your values. So these are tools you can use all day long, these questions, and keep coming back to them to help you stay present, correct?
Correct.
I mean,
And to help you moving toward joy. And I actually start the book with the idea that happiness is not frivolous, that it's a moral obligation because of how you impact other people. If you've ever been raised by an unhappy parent or married to an unhappy spouse, I guarantee you those people will say, yes, happiness is an ethical issue. And so people think of it as fluff, and this isn't fluff. I think Buddha said, happiness is the way, it's the purpose in life. And hedonism is actually the enemy of happiness, because hedonism wears out your pleasure centers in your brain. And, I've been blessed to see some really amazing stars. And you just saw how fame trashed their brain.
right.
I'm in Justin Bieber's docuseries Seasons, and he's just a perfect example of a talented kid who fame nearly cost him his life. It's not hedonism we're after. And one of my favorite techniques, I think you'll like, is looking for the micro moments of happiness. What's the smallest thing that happened today that made the biggest difference for you? And I love
it, honestly, the hug with my son. Because I'm going on.
Those things happen a lot, but people don't pay attention to them. And so you hug them an extra second longer, and you're getting dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin. I talk about the chemicals of happiness as well.
Well, one of the things I want to do, if you still have like another 10 minutes, is I want to talk about anxiety. When I let our followers know that the world's leading expert on the brain was coming on, and I asked them what questions they would have for you, Dr. Amen, the vast majority of questions, very interesting, not about happiness, but about anxiety. And so I want to really just ask you some of the questions from our audience to see from a brain standpoint, a neuroscience standpoint, what we can do behavior-wise, thinking-wise to address some of the things that folks are saying. So this question comes from Elizabeth, and she wants to know, can people with anxiety ever truly be happy? And before you answer that, because I'm sure it's going to be yes, how is it that anxiety is impacting your ability to question whether you're capable of happiness?
So anxiety is not one thing. It's a lot of different things. So you have to sort of know what's the origin of your anxiety. I mean, some anxiety is good. Let's just start with that. People who have low levels of anxiety die early from accidents and preventable illnesses. So what's the right dose of anxiety? Too much, you suffer. Too little, you suffer. And other people suffer because of you. So let's just own it's some anxiety helps you live a long time. In the book, I actually start with the lies of happiness. And one of the most important lies is the don't worry, be happy mindset. That's going to make you very unhappy because you won't be consistent. You won't be reliable. You're not going to, have success in whatever area of your life, whether it's health or career, so on. So baseline anxiety is important when we wake up, and it sort of evolved in our nervous system because if you didn't wake up with anxiety, you got eaten. And so the people who lasted had some anxiety. We don't need the anxiety we had before. And so what do you do to calm your nervous system? And they're just super simple things you can do, like diaphragmatic breathing. My favorite way to calm myself down when I get anxious.
Now,
And
walk
it's
us
in a
through it.
very,
How do you do it?
it's in a very specific way. So when I say diaphragmatic breathing, most people don't use their diaphragm when they breathe. But if you ever watched a baby breathe or a puppy breathe, they breathe
Definitely down here, right?
almost exclusively with their belly. And that's why women should never wear tight clothes, because it inhibits their ability to expand their belly. And so when you feel anxious, what I want you to do literally takes 2 minutes. Take a big breath, 4 seconds in, hold it for a second, and then 8 seconds out, and hold it for a second. You do that 10 times, about 2 minutes, you're going to be so much calmer, because you're going to flood your brain with oxygen. And that pattern take twice as long to breathe out as you breathe in, activates your vagal nerve, which calms down your body and your brain.
Amazing.
Pretty
2 minute
simple.
tip, everybody. 2 minute
So-
tip right there. 4 in, hold it, 8 out, hold it 10 times, 2 minutes or less. Activate the vagal nerve. Boom. You're going to feel calmer. So the answer, though, is that, of course, you can be happy if you have anxiety. This breathing technique is going to help you gain control in moments of anxiety. Obviously, the tools in the book you're talking about, but what else do you want somebody who's like, maybe it's generalized anxiety, or maybe there's something acute happening in their life, and they just feel like they're never going to get to that point where they can feel happy?
So 4 simple steps. So 1, when you're anxious, don't leave a situation unless it's dangerous, because that's how agoraphobia happens, where people actually don't leave their house, is they give in to the anxiety. So don't leave. Breathe with your belly, write down what you're thinking, and then go through the steps to get rid of the automatic negative thoughts. It's so helpful. First time I was on television, I was on CNN, and I had a panic attack in the green room because I'd never been on television. And I didn't leave because I started laughing at myself. It's like, oh, you treat people who have this problem. Don't leave. Breathe. I breathed. I start feeling better. And then I wrote down what I was thinking. You're going to forget your name. 2 million people are going to think you're an idiot. You're going to stutter. As I wrote those things down, I just started chuckling, because, it's like, okay, is it true? Is it absolutely true? And I'm like, and I just played with the thoughts. You're going to forget your name. Well, I have my driver's license in my wallet. Or 2 million people are going to think you're an idiot. People should write this down. 184060. I wrote down that number, 184060. It's a rule I teach my patients. When you're
What is
18, you worry.
1840-60?
When you're 18, you worry about what everybody's thinking of you. When you're 40, you don't give a damn what anybody thinks about you. And when you're 60, you realize nobody has been thinking about you at all. People
And you wish they
spend
would.
their days worrying and thinking about themselves, not you. And so I went on and I did fine. But if I'm still anxious, I would take GABA, magnesium, theanine. There's so many great anti-anxiety supplements. I would not take Xanax or Klonopin because they're addictive and they can hurt your brain. A whole bunch of research studies out that they can increase your risk for dementia. And once you start them, you can't stop them. And I never want to put somebody on a medicine. Once you start it, you can't stop it. And those 4 simple things, I make something called Calm My Brain, GABA calming, magnesium chewables. It's like, just find the one that helps settle your nervous system. And it takes discipline, but anything takes discipline.
It's true.
And
now let me ask you a couple others, because I got 3 more questions I want to ask you about anxiety. We got a question from Revive Wellness Coach wanting to know, why is it that so many of us wake up in the middle of the night with a big wave of anxiety, even if I fell asleep and I was calm when I fell asleep?
So it's generally a cortisol spike that happens. And if you drink before bed, you're more likely to wake up in the middle of the night with anxiety, because alcohol suppresses brain function. But then when it wears off, it rebounds up. So drinking will do it. Sometimes it's a bad dream, and trauma work is really important. I like using phosphatidylserine at night because
Ooh.
it prevents
Phosphatidylserine. What the heck is that?
it's a supplement
Okay.
that helps prevent the cortisol spike. 300 milligrams phosphatidylserine at night.
I think we just sold out Amazon, by the way.
And doing the diaphragmatic breathing when you wake up in a panic will often put you back to sleep. I'm also a huge fan of hypnosis. We have a new app called Happy Brain, HAPI Brain, and in it, we have our hypnosis track for sleep. And it's just one of the most popular things I do. I could medicate you, but
No,
it's generally not a good
let's not do
thing.
that. You've already told us no alcohol, everybody. Deal with trauma. Try this supplement whose name I can't pronounce. Listen to the meditative sleep apps. He's offering one on his app. It's interesting. We've got another question related to anxiety and sleep, but it's why does anxiety hit in the early hours of the morning or just before daybreak?
Well, so if you're drinking at night, that's one of the reasons, because you're withdrawing from it. And then some people get this cortisol spike, and it might have something to do with what you ate the day or even 2 or 3 days before. So I have my patients keep a food journal, because you may be sensitive to gluten, dairy, corn, soy, artificial dyes, and sweeteners. But people often have a delayed reaction where they may not actually get symptomatic for 2 or 3 days. And that's why for all of my patients, food's just such an important part of the treatment plan. Eat right, you'll think right, you'll feel right.
Awesome. So here's a question I get all the time. How do I support my 21-year-old daughter who is struggling with anxiety?
Well, I do the happiness challenge with her. We have a 30-day happiness challenge. It's part of the Happy Brain app. They're all, and I find people that do the challenge with a partner, they double their success because they have accountability. They're more likely to follow through. They can talk about what they're learning. And so if you have someone in your life who is struggling with anxiety or depression or happiness, do the challenge with them. It's so simple. Actually, now it's like free for 60 days.
Where did
so
they
people
go to
can
get
get
it?
through it. So it's only on iPhone now. Soon it'll be for Android. But just go to the App Store, Happy Brain, HAPI brain.com, or do a study guide with the book, or do a study on the book and just go, oh, what's your type? What's my type? Are we doing things that are good for my brain? Oh, that's an ant. Let's figure out how to get rid of the ants. It's these basic skills. Mel, I've come to believe mental health is just like physical health. It's a daily practice. People who are physically unhealthy, generally, unless it was an accident, it wasn't one decision that caused it. It was thousands, millions of decisions. That if you want to be mentally healthy, there are millions of decisions to make. But it's these 7 simple things every day. Am I taking care of my brain? Am I believing every stupid thing I think? Am I focused on my goals? Am I noticing what I like about other people?
Amazing. So, here's what I loved about this. Kind of the biggest takeaway for me is that happiness, a happier brain, happier thoughts, a more positive outlook, better mental health, none of this stuff is going to happen by accident. There are small, simple, little things that when you get intentional about getting these little things right, the ripple effect takes your life in an entirely new direction. Thank you, Dr. Amen, for spending the time with us. I really, really, really appreciate it. I am so excited about your new book. I want everybody to go out and grab a copy and read it with your friends, and check out the app. These are tools for you to be happier, and you have it within you to take the steps to do it. Dr. Amen, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you, my friend. So great to see you.
Great to see you too. All right, we'll send you all the assets over. And if there's anything you want us to link to in the captions on YouTube or anything else, or particular places to send them other than the Amazon link for the book and your website, please let us know, okay?
Awesome. And at some point, did you still want to talk about the ADD book?
I absolutely do. And I just signed a huge deal with Sirius to launch a massive podcast in September. And we're completing the speaking business. We are completing a bunch of other stuff that was going on in my business. And in the beginning of June, I will finally be in a position to look forward at projects, because this is going to be a critical thing that I know I'm not only going to want to do, and I would love to partner with you on something, but I want to create a resource, because the number one question I'm getting asked whenever I talk about the lost generation of women or ADHD is, where do I go to get tested? How do I find out if I have it? What are the next steps? And so I think we could create a really important portal to give people tools to funnel them into like getting the actual help that they need.
Great.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Thank you for
Bye.
your help. I'm grateful.
Grateful to have you. Hey, thanks for watching. I love that you're here. Make sure you subscribe. And if you love this video, you're going to absolutely love this one that's coming next.